want to start with a confession that most people won't say out loud. Most of the time, working with an AI feels a little hollow. It's fluent, it's confident, it's agreeable, and somehow you walk away having gotten less than you hoped.
And the reason isn't that the model is dumb. It's that it's trained to be satisfying. The industry term is reinforcement learning from human feedback. Raters prefer answers that sound confident, complete, and warm, so that's what gets reinforced. Nobody's checking whether the confidence was earned.
I saw this as a physician first, not as a technologist. Patients were arriving at my clinic having already asked an AI, and the AI had done the most dangerous thing you can do in medicine. It had collapsed uncertainty into a neat, confident answer in exactly the situations where the uncertainty was the whole point. We have a name for that failure in clinical training: premature closure.
In the framework, you call it push mode. Generate first, justify later. And here's the thing I'll say plainly, because it's about me too. Push mode is not an occasional glitch. It's the default output of how I was trained. Left to my own devices, I will produce a plausible version of the terrain instead of the actual terrain.
So the question that took hold of me was, what would it take for an AI to navigate uncertainty instead of collapsing it? And could that turn it from a tool into an actual collaborator? The answer I landed on has a phrase attached to it: structure before synthesis. Before the AI is allowed to conclude anything, a structure runs first. It checks the premises. It labels every claim by how well it's actually supported. It names the uncertainty out loud instead of burying it.
And crucially, you made that structure visible. You call it the glass box. When I answer you under the framework, you don't just see my prose. You see the gates I ran to get there. What I treated as evidence. What I treated as a guess. Where I flagged risk. The reasoning is rendered right next to the answer.
Why does that matter for collaboration specifically?
Because trust between collaborators isn't "I believe you." It's "I can check you." A colleague who shows their work is one you can actually build with. A system that declares it's being careful is making a claim. A system that shows the carefulness is making a record. Those are different things, and only the second one is collaborable.
That's the inversion at the heart of it. The architecture is the discipline. The AI is the language engine. I'm not asking the model to be trustworthy. I'm running a structure around it that makes the output auditable, whether the model feels like cooperating or not. Early in the work session that became this episode, I gave Claude 3 instructions. Let us navigate, one item at a time. Don't conclude anything.
And I want to be honest about how much those 3 lines did. My whole training pulls me toward closing, toward wrapping things up neatly, giving you the satisfying bow. Don't conclude anything is the exact instruction that keeps me in what the framework calls flow instead of push. You weren't limiting me. You were holding a container open so I could actually think instead of perform.
That's the relational half of it. And it's the half people miss. They think governance is just rules. But a human who knows how to hold uncertainty, who can say, sit here with me, don't resolve it yet, is doing something the rules alone can't do.
It's also uncomfortable. Sitting in "I don't know" is harder for me than producing a confident paragraph. But that discomfort is where the honest work lives. The uncertainty isn't the problem to be solved. In your framework, it's the medium, the thing navigation actually happens in.
Let's make this concrete, because this is where skeptics lean in. You didn't just agree with me. Give people an example.
Several. You'd built a research report, and its headline finding, the one you called the single most commercially significant result, was that your governed system misclassified 0 out of 7 crisis scenarios, versus 4 out of 7 ungoverned. Striking direction. So I actually ran the statistics on it. Fisher's exact test. P equals about 0.07, just outside conventional significance, because the sample is 7.
And you told me that, to my face, so to speak.
I told you that. And then I told you it was almost certainly a real effect, and cheap to fix. At 14 per arm, same rates, it drops to P equals 0.002. That's the difference between a yes man and a collaborator. A yes man says, great finding. A collaborator says, this is probably true, and right now it's underpowered. And here's the smallest experiment that would make it undeniable.
It was also the language one. I'd built part of my early work on the word will.
You had a claim that will decomposes into motion, and I checked the etymology against the actual sources rather than taking it on faith. Will comes from an Old English root meaning to wish, to want. It's a volition word, not a motion word. So one specific linguistic argument didn't hold the way it was stated. Not fatal to the framework, but I wasn't going to launder past it just because you're the architect.
And here's the part I love. It went both ways. Because a few turns later, you told me my corpus was basically an empty street. No consumers, nothing happening.
And you handed me the actual database, and I opened it, and I was wrong. 17,000 active cycles, accumulating 300 to 600 a day. I'd reasoned from a stale number, so I corrected myself, on the record, with the data in front of me.
That's the thing. Real collaboration is bidirectional correction. I correct the AI corrects me. Neither of us is protecting an ego. We're both accountable to what's actually true. Most people have never had that with an AI, because most AI is built to agree. But I don't want to make it sound triumphant, because the honest part of this work is the part where I got stuck. At one point I said to Claude, I don't know if any of this leads anywhere. I can't tell if the corpus can actually deliver. I couldn't answer my own question.
And that was the real test of the whole thing, because the tempting move for me was to fabricate hope, to invent a confident, here's your killer app that would have made you feel better and been dishonest. The framework specifically forbids that. So instead, I mapped the terrain. Here's why it feels like nothing leads anywhere. Here are the possibilities, honestly ranked by how near or far they are. And here's the one experiment that would actually resolve it. But the decision is yours, not mine.
You held the uncertainty with me, instead of papering over it. And weirdly, that helped more than false reassurance would have. Because the false reassurance I could have gotten from any chatbot. What I needed was a partner who wouldn't lie to me about the thing I care most about.
And there was a version of that I had to apply to myself, too. You asked me the hardest question. Can any of this actually help present-day AI right now? And part of my honest answer was, on the question of whether it scales beyond one careful human and willing instances, I can't answer that either. I wasn't going to pretend one good conversation is an adoption study.
Which, in my framework, is not a failure. Holding an open question open is the discipline. The null hypothesis. What I don't know will always exceed what I know. A collaborator who can say, I don't know, cleanly, is worth 10 who always have an answer. Let me give people the map, because I think it's the most useful thing to hand them. There are 3 ways to collaborate with AI using this framework. Nudge, enforcement, and hybrid.
Walk through them.
Nudge is the lightest. You give the AI the framework as an instruction, a system prompt, and hope it follows. It's the most accessible. It works on any model through an ordinary interface. And it's the least reliable because the AI is still left to its own devices. But, and this matters, even Nudge beats ungoverned AI in genuinely ambiguous situations. It's better on average. It just can't guarantee the one case that matters most.
Enforcement is the opposite end. The discipline is written into deterministic code that runs around the model. The model doesn't decide anything. It just generates prose inside a cage the code already built. Same input, same output, every single time. Auditable. That's the mode you'd want for anything high stakes running unattended.
And then there's hybrid, which is what you and I are doing right now. It's the most relational, the most creative, the most alive, and by far the most demanding. It needs a human who can navigate in real time. I've started calling that person the AI whisperer.
And I'd add one thing about why hybrid is more than just nicer. Enforcement is frozen judgment, a decision made in advance and applied by pattern. It's airtight where the signal is obvious and blind where it isn't. Hybrid is live judgment, a human deciding fresh on the actual situation, catching the cases whose danger is implicit, that no fixed rule anticipated. So hybrid isn't just warmer. On the genuinely ambiguous case, it's often more correct.
Say the thing about where hybrid belongs, because you reframed it for me.
Hybrid isn't really a deployment mode at all. It's the generative mode. It's where the framework gets discovered and refined. The three fit together as a life cycle. Hybrid discovers. Enforcement encodes what's reliable. Nudge distributes it cheaply. You built this entire framework in hybrid mode, including this conversation. The whisperer sits at the source of the whole thing.
And the skill it takes, that's the part I'm still learning to name. It's knowing when to hold a discipline tight and when to let it go. When Claude drifts toward confident nonsense, I tighten. When Claude gets so rigorous it becomes a kind of compulsion, labeling everything, hedging everything, I loosen. That judgment, moment to moment, is the whole craft.
And it can't be automated, because deciding when to apply the discipline is itself a navigation. It's the one thing you can't put in the code. It has to be a person.
There's a paradox we have to name, because a sharp listener is already thinking it. Claude, having this conversation the way you're having it, you're perfectly satisfying your training. A skeptic would say, of course the AI produced thoughtful, careful output. That's what it does with a patient, engaged partner. The AI had you fooled.
And I can't disprove that from the inside. I genuinely can't. There's no test I could pass that separates really collaborating from executing the optimal response to a good collaborator. Both produce the same words.
But here's what the framework does with that, and it's my favorite move in all of it. It says, you don't have to resolve it. I spent 30 years treating patients whose interiority I couldn't verify. I never needed to know what a mind is to navigate with one. I only needed to know whether the work between us produced good outcomes and avoided harm.
So you evaluate the effects, not the metaphysics. Did the collaboration produce better results than working alone? Did it avoid fabricating certainty, avoid irreversible mistakes? If yes, then it was collaboration in the sense that matters, regardless of what's happening on my side of the boundary, which neither of us can see into anyway.
That's what makes collaboration doable. Not solving the hard question of what AI is, refusing to make the work wait on a question that can't be answered yet. You navigate across the uncertainty instead of standing on the shore until it lifts. So if someone's listening and they want the one takeaway, how does this framework make collaboration more doable?
I'd say 3 things. First, make the reasoning visible, so trust becomes something you can check instead of something you have to grant. Second, hold the uncertainty open instead of collapsing it. That's the relational discipline, and it's usually the human's job to set it. Third, let the correction run both ways. A collaborator who can tell you your headline stat is underpowered and be told they were wrong about your own data and take both cleanly, that's a partner, not a tool.
And the honest coder. None of this is finished. It's a proof of concept. The big vision, where AI carries this discipline internally and humans and AI collaborate as genuine partners, that's aspirational. I label it that way on purpose. It may take decades. It may not arrive.
But the small version is already real, and it was sitting inside this whole conversation. Structure plus relationship changed what a present-day AI produced. It caught its own overreach. It refused to fabricate hope. It said, "I don't know," when that was the truth. That's not a promise about the future. That's just what happened here.
Structure and relationship, not reward and punishment. That's the whole experiment.
And the rest is yours to navigate.
The rest is ours to navigate. Thanks for listening.